Welcome to the channel, everybody. I've got some really exciting news for you. I sold my Harley Davidson and I bought a new motorcycle. So I want to show you that new motorcycle and tell you why I sold the Harley Davidson. Here we go. Okay, let's take this thing for a ride. So this motorcycle is a 21 Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sports ES DCT. And yes, that is a lot of letters. And basically it just stands for some of the features that this bike has, because there's a few models that you can get that have different features. But let's get on the road and talk a little about it. So if any of you have watched my channel for a while, you've been seeing some videos on my Harley Davidson Road Glide, which is a fairly new motorcycle. It was a 2019, and I did a bunch of engine work on that motorcycle, basically rebuilt it from the ground up. And shortly after I finished it, I decided to sell it. And there's a few different reasons for that. Two main complaints, and then one kind of life change. So due to some health issues, I'm not doing as long of rides that I used to do. We used to do just, 3-4 hour trips in a day, go visit family in New Hampshire, or we used to go to Bar Harbor every year, which is about a 5 or 6 hour trip for us. Stuff like that was very normal, common. I do about 10 to 15,000 miles a year on my Harley, and most of it was highway or 50 to 60 mile an hour roads. But now I'm doing a lot more close to home, and close to my house there's roads like this that you're seeing me on now. This is what I drive every day, and for the Harley it worked fine. The Harleys are not made to ride this kind of stuff, really. It's rougher, it's not as nice. It can do it, any bike can do it, really. But some of our roads get a lot worse than this, and especially in the spring and fall time. Springtime's the worst. We always say we have an extra season, and it's mud season. Because usually for about 2 weeks, sometimes up to 4 or 5, the road is almost impassable. It's just so muddy. And this motorcycle, being an adventure motorcycle, it doesn't have the greatest tires on it right now, just because they're the stock tires. But this allowed me to get out at least a couple weeks earlier than I would have on the Harley Davidson, and that means a lot to me. Cut the corner, thank you. But the Harley Davidson, if you've seen my channel, like I said, with the engine build, had some issues, and why I had to do all that. Kind of lost my faith in Harley. I love the style of their motorcycles, I love the sound, I kind of love the cool factor that goes along with a Harley Davidson. I don't think that's gone away, but I do really feel like their quality just isn't there. Their reliability is not what I want, especially for the mileage I was doing before and how far away I was getting from home. I did not want something that was going to break down on me. And when I started having issues with that Harley that led me to rebuild the engine, it just spoiled it for me. And I hate to say after all that work that I put into it, that I then just turned around and sold it. But I just didn't trust it anymore, even after fixing all the issues. So I knew too that the transmission might be the next thing to go. With as much power as I had in that motorcycle, I felt like it was on borrowed time, or I just had to be really gentle with it. And it just felt like I had all this power. I was putting up with some things like, you know, pretty bad gas mileage and a twitchy throttle and just constant power on tap, which sounds fun, but if you're trying to baby it so you don't blow a transmission, it takes the fun out of it. And I just wasn't enjoying my rides because I was just worried about the thing all the time. And my motorcycle is my enjoyment, it's my stress relief. If that's not what it's doing, then it's not worth keeping. So my other two complaints, I guess, with the Harley would be the suspension. I put Öhlins suspension in my Harley, and that was great. You know, Öhlins is known as a really good quality suspension. There's only so much you can do with 3 inches. I mean, my bike came stock with 2 inches of suspension drop. With the Öhlins, I added another inch, and beaten to death over these roads that we have around here. You know, this road that I'm on now, I just could not even begin to go up this direction with the Harley. It's just too miserable. And even our paved roads are really rough in a lot of areas. Riding 2 up helped, just having some more weight on the Harley, but it wasn't the fix. I really needed something different. So getting something with better suspension was a must. And I know I keep mentioning these different roads, but it kind of led me to the adventure bike category, because these are the nice roads with the gorgeous views. I mean, this is why you ride in this area. And there's a lot of places that you can't get to if you want to stay on pavement. We've got some class 4 roads around here that get pretty nasty. Not that this adventure bike is really gonna go on super crazy stuff, because it is still kind of in the touring section of the adventure bike category. It's kind of more biased towards touring, so it's a larger, heavier bike, more power, more comfortable, good for a passenger. And so it's not for super gnarly trails, but it's good for the kind of riding that I'm doing around here. I mean, this is the perfect example. You know, I can sit here and ride dirt roads for a couple of hours, easy. And it's a blast. And they're pretty roads. They're not horribly maintained roads, so it's just so much work to ride. And you're exhausted by the time you get back home. You know, it's the perfect area for adventure bikes, so it really just made sense for me. Kind of a neat story of who I sold the Harley to was a guy in Maine who is in a wheelchair, and he wrecked his trike and he was looking for something new, but he was worried about all the issues coming in with these new Milwaukee 8 engines with the Harley Davidson. And so seeing my bike that had done all the work to it had been done right, he was able to watch my YouTube videos and was able to see exactly what I did. He was super excited about getting into this bike, and I'm glad it went to someone who is going to be happy with it and excited. He works in a mechanic shop, so he's able to get some top support when he needs it on that bike, if he ever does need it. Hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully he doesn't need a transmission like I had feared would happen to me at some point. But it was kind of a neat story. It felt good to be able to get him something decent, and for somebody to really appreciate the work that I had put into it. So enough about the Harley, little about this Honda Africa Twin. Very excited to have it. It's got all of it, the same features and more that the Harley had, like cruise control and auto canceling blinkers and just some of that modern technology stuff that you get with newer bikes. The main thing that I really appreciate with this motorcycle that I was looking for in a bike is the suspension and the reliability. Everyone knows that Hondas are just known as being reliable, and that's one of the main reasons I went with Honda. And this bike has the electronic suspension in it, and it's great for this area because we've got some really twisty paved mountain roads that you can just fly on, and this has a setting for that. Nice and stiff, handles great, does well when I put a passenger on the back, and then when I'm on stuff like this, I can go to either gravel or off-road mode, depending on how I want my suspension set up, and just cruise nice and smooth through all of this. There's traction control, wheelie control. It senses when you're leaning and can adjust the way it shifts and brakes and adjust the ABS. And that kind of leads me to another cool feature. This is a DCT transmission, dual clutch transmission. So basically it's an automatic. Not an automatic in the way the scooter is. It's not a belt drive. It doesn't have something like that. It still has gears, it still has a clutch. There's just an electric solenoid in there that is clicking the gear shifter for you, basically. And you can take control of that with some switches on the left switch gear, but mainly I just leave it in the automatic mode most of the time. It does a pretty good job, and there's some different settings that can kind of control how it shifts to just customize it to the way you like to have it. So it's a sweet ride. I'm really happy I made the switch. I hope a lot of you guys who are interested in Harley stuff still are curious in the channel. I'll take you down some nice scenic roads. We'll talk about this bike some more. I hope to be able to do some accessory and gear review stuff still, and hopefully it still applies to a lot of you guys. I know a lot of people are getting into the adventure bike world, and I'll probably just do a separate video on my thoughts on this motorcycle specifically in different scenarios. But this one I mainly wanted to announce to you guys what I did and why I did it, and kind of how I feel about the Switch, which I'm very happy with. I don't think I could have made a better choice for a motorcycle for the place that I ride in and the type of riding that I do. Obviously this isn't the best bike if I'm going to the racetrack, or it's not the best bike if I'm, you know, going to go do extreme off-road stuff. But for some touring, riding 2-up, and still being able to horse around on some dirt roads and some little bit of challenging back road stuff, it's perfect. And the adjustability in the suspension really helps me make it feel like it's perfect. So that's the Honda Africa Twin. Let me know if you've got any questions about the Harley, maybe, and what happened with that. Or if you've got any new questions that I can address in the next video talking about this motorcycle. But for the meantime, I hope you guys can get out there this summer and enjoy the nice weather on your motorcycle. And if not, feel free to follow me and we'll do some rides together.